House Minority Leader Daudt, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to us about the upcoming legislative session.
Well, thanks for having me.
This year marks a transition for the House of Representatives. Having taken the majority in 2010, the Republicans now find themselves in the minority. Are there any lessons that can be learned from this past election cycle?
Well, obviously the results weren't what we were expecting or hoping for, but we are looking forward. We're committed to getting to work for Minnesotans, and we want to continue our policy of recovering Minnesota's economy and getting Minnesotans back to work. We think that's what people care about, and that's what we're committed to, and we're looking forward to working with the Democrats on those issues.
Going into this session, what is the mood of your caucus? Are you united? And if so, how?
The mood of our caucus is very upbeat. Our members are looking forward. We're looking to the election in 2 years, and really I think we're looking at being a part of the solution and really rolling up our sleeves and getting to work over the next couple of years and working with the Democrats where we agree. And I know that we'll have opportunities to disagree over the next couple of years, and we want to do that respectfully, but we do want to find areas where we can agree and where we can work on things that we can agree on. So we look forward to both of those things. But our caucus, the mood of the caucus is pretty upbeat. I know we just came through an election cycle that wasn't what we were hoping for, but I think people are really looking forward and ready to get to work.
What are your priorities for the upcoming legislative session?
Well, our priorities are first and foremost balancing the state's budget. We believe that we need to do that without causing any more burden or harm to our Minnesota's middle-class families and Minnesota workers. The economy, we feel, is headed in the right direction. We're on a path to recovery, but we know that that's a sensitive recovery, and we don't want to upset the apple cart. We want to make sure that we are passing policies that are going to help Minnesota become more competitive, help Minnesota employers hire more Minnesotans, and really help people in Minnesota find better paying jobs. So those are the things that we're committed to working on over the next couple of years.
You know, we've heard a lot about the tax code as one way to deal with the projected $1.1 billion budget deficit. What is your vision of reform?
Well, I think we've shown over the last couple of years that you don't need to just increase revenue, that there are a lot of efficiencies and reforms that we can find in state government, and I think we've got some good examples of that over the last couple of years. And just because we've got a $1.1 billion deficit doesn't mean we need to run right out to the taxpayers and ask for more money. They sent us here to do a job, and sometimes that's a tough job. And as I said earlier, we're ready to roll up our sleeves and get to work. And we think that there are more efficiencies that we can find. State government is not going to have less money over the next couple of years. The revenue is projected to be $1.7 billion higher than the last biennium. That's a 5% increase in state spending without raising any taxes. So what we're committed to is finding solutions and prioritizing our spending at the state level so that we're not putting any further burden onto Minnesota families that might be struggling already.
Do you foresee working with the DFL caucus to find some bipartisan solutions to dealing with this deficit? And if so, what would that look like?
Sure. I think that there are a lot of opportunities where we can work together, and I think there are some things we agree on. I think we've got some good examples of some education reform that we did over the last couple of years, and we hope to work on those things as well. As far as budget savings, I think there's all kinds of examples, and we're at the point in the state budget where we're looking at littler things. I don't know that there's one big sweeping thing that's going to save us $1.1 billion. If there was, I think this job would be very easy, but unfortunately we've got to roll up our sleeves and do the tough little things and find those. Little examples might be allowing county governments to hire an outside auditor rather than having the state auditor go in and do their audits for them on an annual basis. These are little things, but little things add up to little savings, and if you get enough of those, you end up solving the problem, and I think that's what the voters sent us here to do. So we're really dedicated and committed to doing that, and we want to work with the Democrats on that as well.
When the November economic forecast was released, you said you'd like to see tax breaks for middle-income families. Why is right now a good time for that?
Well, I think that, and Minnesotans, I think, can relate to this. I think people are struggling a little bit in their own personal budgets, and putting another burden on them and asking them to pay a little bit more, we think will be harmful to the economy. And I know businesses are struggling as well. The job market isn't what it was 5 years ago, and we really need to, you know, head in the right direction. And we feel that the policies over the last 2 years, the fiscal policies over the last 2 years have done that. We feel that they're working. I think the budget forecast shows that those policies are working and the state is in recovery. But there's a lot of uncertainty as well. We've got the fiscal cliff, and we're not sure how that's going to work out yet. And those things are out of our control. So we know that at the federal level, the Congressional Budget Office has said in their report on the fiscal cliff that if those taxes increase at the federal level, that we're going to see a spike in unemployment here in the state of Minnesota. And we just feel that it would be harmful to double down and increase taxes here in Minnesota on top of what might already be coming from the federal level. So, and I think there's some uneasiness from Minnesotans about that. So we'd like to provide some stability and let them know that, you know what, we can get through this. This budget deficit is much smaller than what we dealt with over the last couple of years. We took a $6.2 billion deficit, turned it into what adds up to about a $2.5 billion surplus in the current biennium. We paid down the shift. We refilled the cash flow account. We refilled the reserve account. Minnesota's budget situation is in great shape. Sure, we've got a little deficit to deal with over the next couple of years, but Minnesota's going to have more money to spend. Revenues are coming in higher than projected. So this is just a bump in the road, and we'll get through this. And I think we need to let Minnesota families know that we can do that, and that we're not going to be going to them for a tax increase.
Are there any issues that you've been hearing about that the DFL caucus is going to bring forward that concerns you?
There are some things that I've heard talked about. I don't know how serious they are about bringing them forward, but we don't want to put any more harm onto our middle-class families, and things like the gas tax. I know there's been a task force that has proposed a 40 cent a gallon increase in the gas tax, and I know that's over some time, but a lion's share of that is going to start right away if that task force report is adopted. So we know that Minnesota families can't afford those kind of increases in their budgets, and we want to be careful not to put that burden on those people that might otherwise be struggling.
Another issue in light of the tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary School is school safety. What type of legislation would your caucus support to address this concern?
Well, first and foremost, our hearts go out to the families of the victims. Obviously, a horrific tragedy, and I think it makes all of us stop and think a little bit about how precious the people are that we care about in our lives. But you know, I think what we can take away from this, and I want to be careful that we're not jumping to conclusions on what might have or might not have caused this. And I think over the course of the next few weeks, we'll probably learn a little more about what might have caused this. But I think first and foremost, we need to take a look at some of the mental health issues that we deal with here at the state capitol, and I think that's the common denominator in all of these tragic shootings that we've seen, and this is another example of that. So we want to make sure that we're providing the care to the people that need that mental health care. So I think that's one area that we can work on.
Job growth is always an important issue. How can your caucus have a positive legislative influence on the economic recovery? And are there any jobs bills that members in your caucus are working on right now?
Sure, I think there's probably a number of them in the works. I know there's some stuff that we worked on over the last couple of years that we didn't quite get finished. We want to make Minnesota's business climate more competitive, and that we hope will draw more businesses into Minnesota and better paying jobs into Minnesota. So things like reducing the business property tax or eliminating the business property tax, we think those are things that will be helpful to the job climate here in the state. We just want to do things that are going to help Minnesota businesses hire more people. So I've said numerous times recently, when policies come forward, whether it be from our side or from the DFL, I want to make sure that we're asking, is this something that's going to help Minnesota families? Is this going to help Minnesotans find a job here in Minnesota? And if it's not, I think we need to take a second look and reprioritize, because that's where our focus needs to be over the next couple of years.
Would you support a bonding bill? And if so, how large do you think the bill should be? And should it be passed right away during the session?
Traditionally, the first year of the biennium is a budget year, and the second year is a bonding year. I know that hasn't always been the case. I think our priority and my caucus's priority is on balancing the budget, and you know, we need to make that our first priority. I think there's an appropriate time, and we look forward to working with the DFL on a bonding bill. And we want to make sure it's a bonding bill that represents Minnesota, both rural and metro, and that it's a reasonable amount. But I think we'll have the appropriate that conversation at the appropriate time. My inkling is that the appropriate time might be the second year of the biennium, but I wouldn't say that a bonding bill is off the table the first year. But I think there's a lot of unanswered questions that we want some resolution to in the budget process. So our focus is there, and once we've got that solved, we're open to talking about it.
So is it too early then to think of how large of a bonding bill you would support?
I think so. I always think that we do things backwards in state government. Putting an arbitrary number is kind of like throwing a dart at the wall. I think that a bonding bill should be an organic thing that comes from looking at projects and the need of those projects and the need of the communities that those projects will help, more so than what's the number. I don't know that we know the number until we know what projects come forward and how important those projects are. And we're going to have to prioritize those, and ultimately, I think that's how we'll resolve and come to a final number on what the bonding bill should be.
This is only your second term as representative, and already you're the minority leader. Can you just talk to us about the trust your caucus has placed in you?
Well, obviously my caucus has placed a great deal of confidence in me. That's a humbling thing for me, and I'm honored by that support that they've placed in me. It's obviously some new challenges for me, but I think some new opportunities as well. And we've got a great leadership team in place. We've just over the last couple of weeks filled out our staff leadership team and our member leadership team, and I'm excited to get to work with all of these people. There's a lot of new faces, and I'm just one of those new faces. But I look forward to the coming session and the challenges it brings for me. And this is a little outside of my box. I didn't think I was going to be doing this. A little bit unexpected, but I'm ready for the challenge, and I think that. I bring a lot of good qualities to the position, and I've got great relationships on my side of the aisle and also across the aisle, and I think we can really accomplish some things over the next couple of years if we can be respectful and work together on things we agree on, and a lot of that really is going to be on the DFL to see how much they want to work with us, and of course we're eager to find that out, but we do look forward to working with them.
Well, how will you strike that balance with staying true to your caucus's values, but still working with the DFL party when it comes to what's in the best interest of the people in Minnesota?
Sure. I think that we want to work together where we can, and some of the questions that I am going to be asking when policies come forward: is this something that's going to be helpful to Minnesota families? Is this something that's going to make Minnesota's business climate more competitive to bring employers in so that we've got better paying jobs for Minnesotans? If we can focus, and if the DFL can focus on those issues as well, I think we're going to have a lot we can agree upon, because doing what's best for Minnesota is the most important thing. Obviously, we're going to have some areas where we're going to disagree, and like I said earlier, my hope is that we can do that as respectfully as possible and honor the institution and the job that we were elected to do. But I think a lot of it's going to be on the DFL to see how much they want to work with us. I think it's important to note, we haven't had this situation for a long time, and I know a lot of Minnesotans have heard many times that, we have a long tradition of divided government in Minnesota, and that forces two sides to work together. We're not in that situation right now. The DFL has the majorities, and they can do this without our votes. So it'll be interesting to see if they want to work with us. But my offer to them is we are ready to come to the table and get to work, and we hope that they'll take us up on that. And they've pledged to so far, but we want to see their actions, not just their words. So, but I think we're going to have a productive couple of years.
Much of the state may not know a lot of personal details about your life. What would you want to share with the people of Minnesota as far as what you do and who you are?
I guess I probably this is always the most difficult part is talking about yourself. You know, we come here and we work so hard on behalf of the issues that we care about and for the people that we represent. I try not to make it about me, but you know, I'm just a farm kid from Isani County. I live on what was my grandparents' farm and you know, have lived there for the last 15 or so years and you know, I active in my community, in my church. My family's pretty important to me, and you know, and of course I've got hobbies like everybody else. But you know, I think I bring in maybe a little different perspective here to the Capitol, and maybe to one of these leadership positions. And I hope that that I can stick true to what I believe in, and you know, I love Minnesota. That's why I live here. So my hope is that we can do what's good for Minnesota and less about what's good for, you know, me personally or other politicians personally. It isn't about us. It's really about Minnesotans and doing what's best for Minnesota.
Minority Leader Daudt, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk to us.
Thank you. Thank you.